I can honestly say that it makes gaming more exciting than it's ever been. Ever. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
What are they saying on the street?
Should be coming up now.
Yep, I see you. Hey, we're live.
Let's go.
We did it.
Yeah, we did the thing. Yeah, for all that I love Groovy. All right, welcome to Channel 3 Video Game Book Club. Sorry for the late start, sorry for the technical difficulties. We will talk fast to make up for it, we swear. With me, as always, are my fellow narrators, Darth Smeagol and Basic. Say hi, guys.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here.
How's it going?
All right, we are here to talk about Channel 3 Video Game Book Club bonus games for last part of 2024. We played Donkey Kong Country, we played Doki Doki Literature Club, and we played Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And we're going to start with the first of those, Donkey Kong Country. Smeagol, obviously, you are the Donkey Kong guy around here. Tell us all about DKC and why we should love it.
I mean, this game is just, I really do believe it's one of the best games out there. Definitely one of the best games for the Super Nintendo. The reason I picked it too is, last year it celebrated its 30th anniversary. I want to try and, with this book club, celebrate anniversaries of, classic games like this. And Donkey Kong Country really stood out, being one of the first video games to feature the 3D rendered graphics. I was just reading a little bit more about the game today, and apparently Nintendo wanted Rare to develop a game that had better graphics than Aladdin. Basically they had to out Disney Disney. And I really think they succeeded. I mean, the game is just gorgeous to look at. Not even getting into the amazing gameplay, but just the graphics. And I do think that they still hold up pretty well today. Far better than N64 games for that matter. And I think what Rare did with this franchise, because, keep in mind, Donkey Kong had been dormant, I think, for 11 years, if I remember correctly. I think 1983 or something like that. Somewhere around there was like the last Donkey Kong game. The franchise is basically dead. And so Nintendo figured, even though it's an outside company, we'll let them, try out this franchise. And what Rare did with Donkey Kong, going from a villain that was throwing barrels at Mario, to being a hero of his own franchise, was nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah. I gotta say, so I did not have a Super Nintendo growing up. I never played Donkey Kong Country as a kid. I had no nostalgia for this. I was like, you know what? This is a solid little game here. Playing it for the first time, maybe not the first time. I'm pretty sure I played it somewhere, along the lines of one of Nintendo's many virtual console iterations. It's like, yeah, this holds up as a nice little platformer.
It's nice.
It was fun going through it, and I hadn't played the original. Like I don't even know if I even got through the original, because the first game in the franchise I remember playing was 2, and so it was pretty interesting going through 1 and seeing seeing the kind of, I don't know, reverse evolution, seeing like how it evolved into 2, like the thing that gave rise to 2, which was like one of my favorite games growing up. So it was kind of cool seeing all the pieces fall into place there.
I'm with you, basically, because 2 was one that I owned. It was my entry into the Donkey Kong franchise. I do believe I played 1 and 3 a bit as a kid, but it wasn't until I was older that I really played through those 2 in their entirety. But I played the crap out of Donkey Kong Country 2 as a kid. What's really cool, too, with Donkey Kong as opposed to Mario is removing the clock, removing the timer. Because Rare really wanted to push the expiration. And so not having the timer, not having to worry about the clock, not having to worry about quickly getting through the level, just being able to explore and find all the secrets that were in there, just, I think, really made that game special.
Yeah, it was. That was one of the things that stood out to me too. Is like it kind of shows its age a little bit in the way some of the things are hidden, like, you know, going through walls that aren't actually walls, kind of thing. But I think overall, like I felt like it didn't rely too much on that. Like I remember there was a lot of things in Donkey Kong Country 2 that were like that, where I'm going back and thinking about it, like, how is anybody supposed to find out where the stuff was at? But I didn't really get a lot of that from Donkey Kong Country 1. Like, I felt like you could kind of go through. I think I got something like 80% or 85% completion without needing to look up like any, you know, videos or guides or anything like that. So,
and they're pretty good too with subtle clues, like having a single banana next to a wall that, okay, I could break that wall and there's a bonus level.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked about this in our last chat when we talked about Halo, about how I feel like games are a lot more complicated now, so it's harder to do this well. But I feel like there's a lot of things like that I really appreciate in older games, where there are like subtle clues to tell you where to go that aren't like, I don't know if you guys have heard of like the yellow paint virus, where like people, like a lot of games nowadays have like bright yellow paint that shows you exactly where you're supposed to go, and it's like it kind of stands out as being like, hey dude, move this way. But a lot of like older games, they're more subtle with it. Like you said, there'll be like a single banana that will entice you to jump into something, and you're like, oh, there's like a barrel there that I didn't know about, you know. So it's really cool how they managed to do that with the hardware limitations that they had, you know.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Hugo.
We can't talk about Donkey Kong either without talking about the music, because let's face it, the music in that franchise is fantastic.
That's amazing. But I found like one thing is, like, I remember the one of my, like a lot of my favorite songs come from 2, but you can kind of again see like the pieces all being put into place in Donkey Kong Country 1, and I really loved just like how chill the game is. Like the whole vibe of the game is just kind of like, you know, relax. You're just like hanging out. You can really just like vibe with it, you know. Oh,
for sure. Yeah, I think it's aquatic ambience is considered by many to be one of the greatest pieces of video game music ever.
It's incredible.
I think the only one that beats it for me as far as Donkey Kong is Forest Interlude in the second one.
I'm a Sticker Brush Symphony man myself, but or whatever that song is called. The Sticker Brush, I think that's what it's called. Sticker Brush something, but
Symphony,
Symphony. Yeah. It's like all the music is really good, and the underwater music, I forgot what you said it was called, but that is definitely like one of the best video game songs that I can think of.
Right. Well, I think in the interest of time, let's transition here and let's go ahead and jump over. We're going to do the games out of order. We're going to do Tony Hawk next. Smeagol, this was your pick again. I foolishly let Smeagol pick 2 of the 3 bonus games.
Well, with this one again, it's celebrating the anniversary of the first Tony Hawk game, released in 1999. But I didn't want to just limit it to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1. I wanted to try and make it available for more people to participate. And that's part of the reason why I picked Tony Hawk was I wanted to find something that would reach a broader audience, hopefully. Something easy to do, because again, this is around holiday time too, around Christmas and whatnot. So I wanted something that people could just easily get into, and just something different. Because obviously, we're never going to do Tony Hawk as a main game, but just something a little different from outside of our usual. And I really think that Tony Hawk fits the bill for that. I mean, it's one of those games. There's not much to it. You're on a skateboard, perform tricks. And I do think that I do like how the series improved. Personally, I like 3 and 4 the best. With 1 and 2, it's basically like you load up a level, you have I think it was 2 minutes to pull off whatever goal you had, and then you just have to go back into that level. Whereas with 3 and 4, they have open world levels, and you can just go around, skate through them, find the challenges that you have to complete. There's a timer on the challenges, but you can just free roam these different levels. So I think really added to the game. Plus, it's fun too, getting to play as Django Fett in number 4.
Oh, yeah.
Spider-Man, I think, in number 3. So just these little bonus characters that you can unlock was just a fun little touch to it as well.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is another one. I did not play this. I did not even replay it. It's just this is a series that's I always look at that like, okay, I can see why some people might think that'd be fun. This is not for me. It's just nothing that I've ever really gotten around to playing.
I feel like for Tony Hawk. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'll go later.
For sure. I was gonna say, I feel like for Tony Hawk, for me, it's one of those games that I think is honestly a lot more fun to play with people. Because then you can challenge each other to beat each other's high scores and stuff. And it was also kind of like a product of the time, because I think that's skateboarding kind of had a really big, resurgence around the time that game came, and probably because of that game. But I just thought so there's a couple levels in there where it was really easy to rack up ridiculously high combos. And so me and my friends would go through and just spend, an hour on one level just trying to get the biggest combo possible. And it's one of those games where I think single player, for me, it's fun just because there's a lot of things to kind of explore. But I think it's one of those things that is definitely more fun to play with people.
And I agree that it's a probably time. For me, I was introduced to the franchise right at the beginning. My brother had gotten a PlayStation. I think one of the first games he got. So it was just something different. It was fun for its time, but going back and replaying it again for this is I'll play it for an hour. It's okay, I've gotten my fix. I don't need to play again for a while. It's just not one of those games for me that I'm going to want to go back to over and over and pour hours and hours into.
I think it still holds up though. I went through and because I played the Tony Hawk 1+2 that collection, and I went through and I 100%ed it, and I still think it holds up really well. And it's funny actually because my kids got into it when I was playing it, and it reminds me how different, because for me in the nowadays I when I play a game, it's I'm trying to figure out what the objective of the game is, and I'm just trying to complete the objective as quickly as possible. But when I was younger, I used to just mess around a lot more than I do now. For example, in the old Paperboy games where you're kind of riding on a bike and you're trying to deliver newspapers to people, I would just mess around and try and break windows, and that's all I would do in that game. I never actually bothered with the objective at all. And my kids were doing the exact same thing with Tony Hawk. So there's a San Francisco level where there's cars that are driving around, and they made it their life's work to just run into that car as much as possible. And they had a blast with it. They didn't bother trying to do any tricks or any of that stuff. They just wanted to get hit by a car, especially because they were playing with a character that looked because I made my own character to look like myself as much as I could, and so they thought it was hilarious to just watch me get hit by a car in the game. So
that does sound hilarious. I gotta be honest. I mean, why would anyone think that isn't hilarious? That's my better question.
I mean, there's definitely a big element with just the wipeouts you could have in that game. because obviously, like if you did that in real life, you'd be dead. But in this game, like you just the most absurd wipeouts possible. And again, can't talk Tony Hawk's Pro Skater without talking about the music. I mean, we did a quest for it. We had 19 people answer the quest asking what their favorite song was, and 14 of those 19 people mentioned Superman by Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Obviously, that song just is linked to Tony Hawk forever.
Yeah. We're going to avoid a copyright strike. We're not going to try to play it here on stream, but you can all go YouTube it yourself.
It is like the song that I think about when I think about Tony Hawk. It's not necessarily like, I think it probably is one of my favorite Tony Hawk songs, but like it's, even if it wasn't, it is just like when you think about that game and you think about the intro music, it's like that's what comes up, you know?
Yeah. I mean, even not having played the games, I was like, oh yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah, right. Like it's one of those things that like it kind of permeates into, you know, the like the consciousness, like the gaming consciousness. We're like, oh yeah, that's the Tony Hawk song, right?
For sure. Yeah. So, all right, Smeagol, favorite track, not favorite, you know, favorite course to play on in Tony Hawk's across all the games you've ever played. Putting you on the spot.
It's been so long since I played a lot of levels, but I think one that's just sticking out in my mind right now is Alcatraz. I think that was in number 4. You know, of course, I love the movie The Rock. And so just being able to go around and skate around The Rock was pretty fun. And I think it was early enough in the game where it's like it's got some challenge, but it's not like overly challenging like some of the really later levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. Well, I'm going to say final thoughts on Tony Hawk's. You know, what are you looking for the next Tony Hawk title to do, Smeagol? What's the couple things they could really do to just really iterate on perfection?
I think I would like a remaster of 3 and 4 like they did with 1 and 2. I did play a little bit of that remaster. I thought they did a fantastic job of touching that one up, and I think if they did that with 3 and 4, that might get me interested in the franchise again. Again, it's never been one of my top franchises, but it was fun to dabble in here and there.
Yeah, I can see that. Basic, what do you think? What do you want in your next Tony Hawk?
Yeah, I kind of agree, actually. I think it'd be cool to see like a remaster of 3 and 4, because I know I played those games when I was younger, but like again, like for me, 1 and 2 are the ones that stuck out the most because I played them with friends, whereas like 3 and 4, I think like a lot of my friends had moved on from the franchise by that point. And so like I played them, but I don't really remember anything about them at all. Whereas like I remembered everything about 1 and 2 before even touching the remaster, because I'm like, I just sunk so much time into them, you know?
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to wrap us for Donkey Kong and for Tony Hawk's. And at this point, I am going to warn viewers that we are going to be transitioning to talking about Doki Doki Literature Club, which is an M-rated game. We're going to keep the stream as PG-13 as possible. But I do want to warn that we are going to be talking about topics around mental health and depression. And so, viewer discretion basically is advised here. Oops, I fixed my typo in my banner. So basic, you put out a good level. First of all, before you even get into it, give us the quick pitch of what is Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah, so it is it's basically a visual novel, more so than like a traditional game. Like it's a game that when you first play it, it comes across like it's going to be a dating sim. So, it's like you're the main character and there's a bunch of girls in this, it's like an anime. It's like a bunch of anime girls in this literature club that you're going to try and romance and build some relationship with. And that's how you think the game is going to be. But it's more, and so the reason I bring that up is that these types of games, they usually give you this, they give you like choice in how you want to play the game, like who you want to, build that relationship with. But Doki Doki Literature Club, it's more of a visual novel where like the story is kind of set. And at some point in the game, and we'll probably get into that in a little bit later on, but the game transitions from being this kind of, dating sim / visual novel to this like really intense psychological horror experience. There's like a lot of like fourth wall breaking moments, a lot of it's kind of hard to get into it without getting into all the spoilers, but basically it's like it's a horror game that kind of really it uses the visual novel / dating sim relationship building aspect to like lure you into this kind of false sense of security. And it like, when it transitions into horror, it uses those connections that you built up with these characters to like really kind of hit you in the emotions as hard as possible.
For sure. Yeah. This game does a lot with a little in some ways, there's nothing complex about it is, like you said, it is the textbook definition of visual novel. I do appreciate that, you get to make some choices. We'll get into that in a second, but I picked this game. This is my pick, and I picked it for a couple of reasons. One is I wanted to see, okay, how far can I push this? Video Game Book Club, will people sign on and play a visual novel? A lot of people have a lot of hate for visual novels, and I'm not here to judge. If you don't like visual novels, that's your thing. But I also think the story in this game is absolutely incredible. The writing is, it's S tier. It is amazing. There are a few games, 100-hour JRPGs, so near and dear to my heart. They have fantastic writing, great deep complex plots. This game does it in 10 hours tops, and that's like 100% completion.
Yeah.
And again, the third thing is just like, like you get into, like, this game, it looks like one thing. It looks like that, anime trope dating sim, and it absolutely is not. This turns into dark horror pretty fast. Let's get into that. Let's get into the last spoiler warning, people. Like, if you haven't played this game, you should. This spoiler happens pretty early, so we're not really spoiling anything too bad yet. But so you're hanging out. You're a high school student, and you're invited to join. Invited, coerced, join this literature club. Because okay, you're gonna read books. Hey, we're a video game book club, and we're here talking about a game which features a book club. I didn't even think of that meta when I was picking this game, but I'm gonna say I did.
And it was very meta.
So, you join this club, and you're the only guy in this club. Fine, whatever. These girls, they've all got different interests. Okay, one likes manga and one likes poetry, and you're gonna take turns writing these poems. I like how the game does that poem writing. Like, I was am I gonna have to write poems? I can't write poems. Like, that's not a thing to do. But all you have to do is basically it gives you 20-ish words at a time, and just a list. It's just there's one word. So might be happy, or some of them are really crazy, like melancholy, or sunshine, sparkles, bouncy, despair. They're kind of like up and down this spectrum of really positive things to really negative sort of connotation things, and a few things are kind of more in between, like rain cloud. Okay, the rain cloud is not necessarily bad by itself, but is that symbolic of something? Hint, yes. You write this poem, you pick 20 of these words one at a time. It just gives you, shuffles the words every time. And basically the words are each associated with one of the girls in the club. And so your poem is nominally for one of the girls based on whose word you picked the most. And you kind of the novel just takes you through these steps of okay, who do you want to show your poem to first? And they'll react to your poem based on how they liked it. And so the first, and you do this for a couple of days, and as you're going, you're also like, oh yeah, we have this big school festival, we should do something for that. We've got some ideas. Hey, player character, you know, which we've already got our plans. Like, we don't want to start something new, but why don't you come help one of us? Who do you want to pick to hang out with? And you're kind of given this choice of like, so now you're trying to see like, okay, and then again, like if you don't know the twist, if you don't know that this is going to turn into something really dark, you start thinking, okay, well, this is like how I'm going to pick like who I'm going to wind up dating, because like I'm going to go hang out and spend time with them, and they're really nice, really cute and touchy, and wholesome. Again, these are not mature rated scenes. These are just high school kids hanging out, having a good time, working on some arts and crafts stuff for a fair.
Yeah.
You get to the end of basically this first couple of days, and your best friend Sayori, and Basic did an absolutely amazing whole video about Sayori and her whole role in this game. In some ways, the story is more about her than it is about anyone. Monica might already know that, but we'll get into Monica.
Yeah.
And so Sayori, you can kind of get a sense early if you're looking for it, if you can kind of see between the lines, like something's maybe not quite right with Sayori. Like she's masking her feelings really well. She's doing that they call it like a smiling depression, where you're putting on a happy face, but underneath you're just miserable inside. And then
I think I just want to jump in really quick and say one thing that you mentioned, like that there's like hints about this, and that's one of the things I thought was really interesting was the actual poem minigame itself, because when you first are writing when you're picking from these words, and if you're trying to write for Yuri, you might think, because she's into all these like highbrow intellectual words, and so you might go for a word like melancholy, and then that triggers like Sayori's reaction in the little poem minigame, and you're like, what the hell? Like, that seems really wrong and out of character. So it's like things like there's like a lot of little subtle hints, but I think that was one of the first things that like really stuck out to me in the game. Was like, it was a really surprising moment, was just like, I went to pick this word because I thought it was going to go for one person, but then it was like, it went for Sayori instead, and I was like, oh, that's like unexpected. But sorry, I had to jump in there just to mention that, because I thought it was like a really cool moment.
I have 100% of this game twice on 2 different platforms, and I still like, sometimes it's like, wait, that word went to that person? Yeah. It's just like, you think you know these characters, and then like, wait, there's another layer here. There's another little twist to the. Yeah. So back to our main plot recap. So Sayori, of the girls you can pick, basically, you try to say, oh, well, I'll go help my best friend, Sayori. Like, she lives just down the road from me, or maybe next door. Like, you've been childhood friends. And she's like, no, you don't have to go help me. Pick one of the other 2 girls. Okay, you pick one of the other 2 girls to go help. You help one of them. Okay. And then, like, Sayori comes out, like, oh, hey, you're about to leave, and, like, you're walking home, and it's like, oh, hey, Sayori, what's going on? And she's kind of got this touching moment where she kind of basically confesses, that she's got these feelings for you. Not surprising. The signs were there for that too, and you can either respond reciprocating, or you can friend zone. Friend zone in a very nice way. It's like yeah. And the thing is, and you think like, okay, well, again, this is changing how I'm gonna. The thing is, it doesn't change anything. You can replay that scene, a dozen times, pick either outcome. It doesn't matter. And then kind of our absolute last final warning. This is where it gets really dark. Basically, the next day you're getting to class, or not class, it's the club, and like, hey, what's going on? Where's Sarah? Have you seen her? We're supposed to be doing this thing. Okay, well, you go say, okay, well, I'll go walk. It's Japan. High schools are always a walking distance. You can just go, walk. You check in on her, and you find, you go upstairs, and you find that she's hung herself, and it's a pretty gruesome scene. It's just very shocking visually. It just kind of gets you. We're absolutely not going to show that scene. It's just way too much for the stream, but. It's just kind of like, wow, I did not know this game was going to go there. Like, I intentionally went in very blind on my first playthrough. Mm-hmm. And as I imagine you did too, Bates. Like, what was the impact for you of seeing that?
So I had kind of had I didn't have the exact scene spoiled, but I like kind of knew before going in that something like that was going to happen, and it still like caught me super off guard, just because like it happens like in the middle of a text box that's going off. So it's like there's this the famous kind of text box from the game was like I gently open the door, and then it's like it starts saying her name, and in the middle of you reading it, it's just like you get hit with this like bam, and it's this really like it's not super loud, but it's like this really shocking. Like this really shocking noise that pops up with the scene of her. I don't want to go into too much detail on it because it's kind of
right, yeah.
But it's the scene. It's like that scene. It's like that picture of her after she's already passed away, and it's like the whole thing was just like, what the hell's going on here? And the music changes and gets all weird, and it's like it's a really intense scene.
Yeah, it's really a gut punch. Like the only way I can describe it is like, wow, Because whether even if you thought it was a dating sim or not, if you maybe had the hints that it wasn't, but like, Sarah is a fun character. You liked her. She, you felt for her like, okay, as player character, putting myself in the player character, she's my childhood friend. She's the one who drags you along to the literature club in the first place, basically.
Yeah.
And just all of a sudden, she's gone from the picture.
Yeah.
And then the game gets really weird. Because basically the game goes into a game over. It's like, just no. Like, in some ways I take that as the player character somewhat basically just shutting down and not wanting to process what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the main menu looks a little bit weird. And you're like, oh yeah, whatever, just a little visual glitch, no big deal. You go like, okay, let me try to load up my game. Nope. Can't load up your game. You have to say, I'll hit play. What happens? And it's almost as if the game has started over.
Yeah.
You wind up back in the literature club, but nobody knows who Sayori is. She's gone. It's as if she never existed.
Yeah. And
that was kind of that was kind of my first sense of like, what is going on here? This is bizarre, but I'm here for it. What was your reaction to that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I tried to do when like after that scene happened, so like I mentioned, the scene happens, the game shuts down, and you end up back on the like on the intro screen, and what I did is I went to the load game option to try and load my game, and then it's like, oh, your file's corrupted, so we're starting. It just immediately throws you into a new game, and it starts you again like on day one of like a new playthrough essentially. So you don't immediately know that something is amiss, and I just thought it was funny because I'm like, oh, like I said, I already kind of knew that was going to happen, or that the death scene was going to happen, and so I just was like, oh, I wonder like how that plays out if I would have selected the other option, because I purposely created a save before making the decision to just so I could see what happens. And then it's like, no, you can't do that. Your save's corrupted. And then it just deleted everything. And I was like, what the hell, man? Like now I gotta like get through the rest of this before I can go back and see like how, if there's like anything that I, anything that could have been done differently and how that could have played out. But yeah, it's weird. It gets super weird, super quick after that.
Thankfully, the game features a fast forward option for text that you have already seen, because you will need to repeat a lot of the text. But it's very nice that it has a feature to like, it will stop fast forwarding the text if it's new text that you haven't seen. So that's really nice to quality of life there. So you kind of go through the same sort of cycles again. It's just like, okay, it's just like the game reset, but Sayori's not here. Okay, we're still writing poems. You can still pick Sayori's words, but it doesn't quite do the same thing. Yeah. And then you show the poems again, and like more and more graphical corruption starts happening, and you start seeing more and more things just being strange in the game. Yeah. And suddenly, like, even the two other characters besides Monaco, whose names I'm blanking on, Natsuki and Yuri. Natsuki and Yuri, they have some weird scenes too. As like, you can write poems for them, and you can show them, and they act like they're happy, but something's still weird with them too.
Yeah,
and
they like
then,
cuss at each other and stuff. It's like really weird. It like, yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, they start snapping at each other. Basically, like you're fighting over them. Even if you're not trying to fight over them, they think that you are like picking one of them over the other, favoring one over the other.
Yeah.
And then you got Monica, the fourth actor in all of this, and in some ways the most interesting character here. Monica eventually kind of comes into, it's like, she starts breaking the fourth wall and says, wait. Oh, you shouldn't have seen that. Like, what do you mean I shouldn't have seen that? Like, and she kind of talks directly, past you. Well, not past you. Yeah, she talks to you and says like, oh, well, let me just fix that a second.
Yeah.
And you can actually literally see an animation of her like opening like a Linux console sort of thing and like running shell commands. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And she's like trying to do things, trying to reset things, and she's in some ways herself jealous. She wanted you to be hanging out, focusing your attention on her instead of the other two girls. So she winds up just doing the natural thing apparently when you're that kind of person, and she opens the shell script and she deletes their characters files.
Yeah. It's really weird because when she comes in, right, and she reveals that she's kind of this self-aware entity in the game that has like access to the game's code and the game's files, and so she deletes them and puts you into this situation where you go into like this corrupted version of the classroom that's like floating in space, and she's talking to you about like how it's actually like, it's kind of in some ways like she's a really tragic character because from her perspective, basically the other three characters are just they're just AIs. They're in a video game, but she's like self-aware. She knows she's in a game, and the game doesn't give her. So what you were talking about was how like she's jealous because she wants to build a connection with you. But the thing is, the game never gives that chance, right? So we mentioned the poem mini game. You can write poems for Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki. You can write poems for them, but you can't write a poem for Monica at any point in the game. And not only that, but there's a scene that you mentioned earlier where you're deciding who to do these festival preparations with, and you can pick any four of the characters. If you try and pick Sayori, the game, I forget what happens, but the game basically says like, no, you can't do that. Like she's already doing something else. And if you try and pick Monica, the other two get pissed off and they like don't let you pick her. So like at every step in the game where you could theoretically make a choice to do something and to build like a connection with Monica, the game literally doesn't allow that to happen. So from her perspective, she has to sit back and watch all these like non-self-aware video game characters build this connection. And she doesn't get the choice. And so she kind of deletes them so that and she knows that like the main character is just a character in a game, and she wants to talk to you, not the main character of the game, but like you, the player. And it's this crazy fourth wall breaking moment. And the way it does it, like, I don't know, did you play it on like the original version on Steam, or did you play Plus only?
I only played Plus because Plus works better on consoles.
Okay.
Because where it gets really weird is in we kind of call it like Act 3. Act 3 starts when Monica has now deleted all, Sarah is gone. Her character file is basically corrupted. Monica has deleted Yuri and Natsuki. And now it's just Monica in a very empty room with a desk, just sitting and talking, to you. And it's like she's really talking past the player character, talking to the human on the other side of it. So, and it's this rambling monologue of just her kind of laying everything out, her feelings, her desires, her hopes. So even as a digital AI, you see like this AI is basically depressed as well. However that happens, which is mind-boggling, but. She and possibly during that scene, there's kind of a bunch of random things that can happen. She can actually pop up the poem minigame randomly, and then you can actually write a poem for her because like literally like all the words are like Monica or something, and just like
and she's like, that's beautiful.
Monica. and she loves it. You know, she's like, oh, it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Very,
The reason I asked if you played the original version or the plus version is that the original version, she has this line of dialogue. I'm not, you probably know, but she has this line of dialogue where she talks past. So you can name your player character whatever you want, right? Like I can name the player character like basic.
Yeah.
But then what she'll do is if you're playing the original version on Steam, like I forget exactly how this works, but basically it like reads the name of your computer. And so like if your actual name is in your PC name, right? So like, it's like, C:users : whatever your name is. And like, she can find what that is. And so there's a whole compilation clip on YouTube of people that like, it's like reading their real names and they're like, what the hell? Like, how is this happening? It like,
oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's just genius the way that they did it, because everything about the game just is designed to make you just super unnerved like all the time.
Right. Absolutely, yeah. So you're stuck. You feel like you're just stuck, and it's like you're like, okay, it's a visual novel. I'll wait. I'll read all the dialogue. It loops. It's never ending. But if you start paying attention, she's like, she even kind of hints at like, well, you wouldn't delete me, right? You wouldn't do that sort of thing. And it kind of giving you the clue that, maybe that is in fact what you need to do. And so again, I'll ask you in a second how this works on Steam. In the Plus editions, the game kind of comes with a little mini desktop interface. So the whole game is like taking place like you're logged in on a computer. And so you can either like launch the game or you can browse the files on that computer where you can see things like, oh, there's a characters folder. And inside that folder, there's a Monica.chr file. What happens if I delete? Oh, I can delete that. What do you know? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you go back into the game and Monica's all corrupted and it's, just chaos. And this basically gets you to the first ending, the first real ending of the game where, you've progressed through the entire story, and there's a pretty nice message from the creator about talking about like why you wrote this and sort of some stuff like that. So on Steam, what is that? Do you have to like really go out into your Windows files and delete the character file?
Yeah, so you have to go into a specific folder like within Steam. You can get it pretty easily if you just right click on the game and then like you can look at like view local file. It's like it's really easy to get to, but it's like it's not intuitive. But Monica actually does explain. She's like, oh, it was really easy to get rid of them. All I had to do was and she explains essentially the process of how to delete a character. So it was kind of obvious that that's what you were supposed to do. But yeah, I thought it was cool. Yeah.
And then after that, you're basically like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, I want to go see the other paths. Well, their game also includes a reset script. So you log into the thing, you find there's a reset script, and then you basically it does what it says in the tin. It resets everything. You're back to square one. Say, always there. You can play through it again. Nothing directly changes except now you as the human, as info, as basic, you've got that meta knowledge of like, okay, I know what this is now, and you can start making different choices.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about how to get this game's true ending, which I know you got, basically, we talked about this offline, that we both go 100% of this game. So you think about like, okay, well, what is the game actually trying to say? It's like, okay, all these girls, in a lot of ways, they're all craving attention, and we don't have to make that romantic. It doesn't have to be anything, intense. It can just be friendship. It can be respecting people for where they're at, saying, yeah, it's okay that you like manga. It's okay that you like, horror fiction. That's fine. And we can be friends, and we can have different interests, and we can share, common things and just have fun hanging out together. And so you try to like, okay, well, I'll write poems for everyone, but there's actually not enough time in the game to write enough poems for everyone. So you basically need to write 3 poems for everyone, and the game gives you time enough to write 6 poems during the court before Monica takes over and just ruins everything.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the trophy. Actually, Monica ruins everything or something. So the game actually expects you. And like this goes crazy. Like I used to watch for this. Like it was like, how do I get this true ending? Okay, sink like the fourth wall. if I save and reload here before the game locks you out of that reload event, okay, I can go back and kind of replay those first few days, writing poems for everyone and treating everyone as equally as possible. And then you get to the end and it's different, you know, just a little bit, but it's a different message. It's a different poem. It's really just incredible what they did with this, just that meta level of, you know, you need to mess with the file system of this game. You know, to get the true ending, you actually literally need to save and reload your game at least once in order to make this happen.
Yeah.
You know, I've never seen anything like it before, never seen anything like it since. And I'm just impressed.
Yeah, I don't think you could make anything else like this without it just coming across like a DDLC clone, right? Like it's such a unique experience that I genuinely can't think of how you could make another game even in the same kind of, like, there's obviously other psychological horror games out there, but it's just, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why. I mean, someone mentioned the video that I put together earlier, and there's like still videos that people are making about this today. The game came out in like 2017, and it's, again, you mentioned it's like a 10-hour game max, and I'm talking about even if you do the side stories for the DDLC Plus, you're done in like maybe 10 hours max, and there's still people like talking about the game, and there's still people making videos about the game, and there's people talking on Reddit about the game. So it's like there's a reason why it's stuck around as long as it has, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it is maybe a flash in the pan. You know, like you're probably right that you couldn't do it again without making it just feel like a knockoff.
Yeah.
But that said, you know, it's such a great game. It's on every platform under the sun. It has no hardware requirements whatsoever. Runs on a potato.
It's cheap too.
It's been free on Epic in the past. It was free on PS Plus. That was another factor in considering it. Like at the time I was picking the games, I knew like right then in that month it was free on PS Plus. So I was like, hey, if you grab this now, you know, you got no excuse. You know,
yeah,
we know so many of the book club members have PlayStation.
The base version of the game is actually still free on Steam. You can get that one without paying anything. Yeah. Plus, I think is like, I forget how much it is, but there's like, if you just search for like Doki Doki Literature Club on Steam, you can download just the base game still. So, but this is the thing. This is how good this game is. So I played through the whole thing, got 100% on Steam on the base game, and then I liked the game so much that I was like, dude, I have to buy the actual like Plus version. Like I need to give this guy money for this game. So I actually bought the Plus version and then played through again to unlock all the content and stuff. So
yeah. So the Plus version adds some little side stories of basically it's an alternate universe where the player character doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and you're just seeing the girls interact with each other, and they're pretty fun.
I thought they were good actually. Like
they get really nice art too. Like we didn't comment on that, but the art in this game for like this is a small little indie project basically.
Yeah,
not one person like some games, but still a small team. Really nice art.
Yeah. And the music is good too. I mean, like everything about the game is just great. Like I love the music in the game. It's pretty simple. Like there's a lot of songs like that are, you know, they're very like from like a music theory perspective, they're not very complex at all, but they're still like the way that they like help create the atmosphere in the game, I think was just really well done. But like everything about the game is just it's great, especially given the fact that it's like it is so simple. You would think a game like this that it would just be kind of crappy, but it's like no, it's like I don't know, it's one of the most memorable gaming experiences that I've ever had, and that's not like an exaggeration.
Yeah. I mean, it was good enough that I felt like, you know, yeah, I want to play this through again. You know, will I play it again a third time? Who knows? But
I don't know if you remember.
We have so final thoughts on the game. I think you kind of wrapped up nicely there.
Yeah, I was going to say really quick. I don't know if you remember, but when we were talking about this before, I mentioned that I was going to start working on Fallen Order a few weeks ago because I'm like, oh, I'm probably really not going to get into Doki Doki Literature Club, so I'll probably just jump ahead to whatever game we're playing next. And then I just fell deep down the rabbit hole of this game, and it's just it's incredible. It's, you know, like I said, I think if you are kind of sensitive to these issues of like mental health and stuff, that I would just pay attention to the content warnings, but it is really like a great game. You know, even with the spoilers, just looking at like the writing itself, the writing is very, very good. yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Really, the writing is really good. The music is really good. I made an entire YouTube video because I thought the game was so good that I just like had to do it. I could not stop thinking about the game for like 3 weeks after I finished it. So
absolutely epic video. Link is visible on your screens right now. It was in Twitch chat. When we put up the VOD of this, I am sure we will link to it as well. That is basically the time we have for today. Thank you again to Spiegel for leading us in discussion of Donkey Kong and Tony Hawk's. Thanks, Basic, for here. This is great discussion on Doki Doki Literature Club. And we are currently in the middle of Jedi Fallen Order on channel3.gg. You can look up the Video Game Book Club there, or VGBC. We are only in the third week of Fallen Order. We are intentionally pacing it very slow, give people plenty of time to catch up. People with busy lives, people, jobs, kids, whatever. Just come hang out. Great time, free for everyone. No arm twisting here, but happy to see you there. Join us next time for all your things. I have an InfoCynic, and thanks again to our executive sponsor, Joel Willis, for creating Channel 3. Goodbye, all.
yeah, thanks. See you guys later.